Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're doing something a little different. Usually, we look at history through, texts, treaties, battles.
Hard evidence.
Exactly, the stuff that gets written down in ink and stone. But today, we're trying to reconstruct a world that is almost entirely invisible, or maybe inaudible to us now. We're looking at the soundscape of the Middle Ages.
It's a fascinating challenge because we're essentially trying to hear ghosts. We're analyzing a specific chapter with a very evocative title. "TANDARADEI, sweetly sang the nightingale."
Which sounds lovely, but I have a feeling it's the entry point to a surprisingly, gritty reality.
Mm-hmm.
And just to orient everyone right at the top, this is an original analysis presented by Viola Studio. Our mission today is to transport you back to 13th century Europe, but we need to do some demolition work first. I think most people, when they hear medieval music, they have a very specific, somewhat depressing image in mind.
Right. We tend to imagine, like, Monty Python monks hitting themselves with boards. Or perhaps just endless, somber chanting echoing in a cold stone cathedral. Dark, dour, and very, very serious.
Exactly. But the analysis we're diving into today just flips that on its head. It suggests a world teeming with satire, bawdy romance, political protest, and incredibly complex musical traditions. But here's the puzzle that really kicks this whole discussion off.
Okay.
We know that music flourished in medieval towns, villages, noble courts. It was everywhere. And yet almost none of it survives in notation. It's like a cultural black hole.
It does seem that way to us now, yeah. If you look at the church, they had an army of scribes dedicated to regulating and recording their repertoire, the liturgy for posterity. They wanted that uniformity. But secular music, the music of the streets and the courts, that was largely oral.
So was this just a literacy issue? I mean, were the musicians just unable to write it down?
That's the common assumption, and it's a fair one, but it's not the whole story. It wasn't just about illiteracy. You have to understand that for these professional entertainers, who were often from hereditary families of musicians, their music was a trade secret.
A trade secret?
Absolutely. Think about it. If you're a master improviser, a written text can't possibly capture the nuances of what you do. It can't capture the skill honed over generations.
It's static.
It's static, and more importantly, if you write your repertoire down in a manuscript, you're essentially handing your livelihood over to your competitors.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
Yeah.
It's like a magician revealing how the trick is done. You don't want that manual floating around.
Precisely. So what we have is a silence in the historical record that was actually intentional. They didn't want us to read their music, they wanted to perform it. It was a protectionist strategy in a very competitive gig economy.
So our goal today is to bypass that silence. We're going to try and hear what was lost by examining this specific chapter, focusing on Adam de la Halle and the vibrant world of troubadours and trouvères.
It's a vibrant world to explore.
Welcome to Viola Studio. We are a YouTube channel dedicated to the technical, pedagogical, and artistic development of viola students and instrumentalists. In every episode, our goal is to provide a concise and entertaining analysis. We will explore key themes, the messages of the great masters, and the historical context that shaped the sound of our instrument. Whether you are taking your first steps in the alto clef, or you are a professional seeking a new perspective, there is something for everyone at Viola Studio.
Don't miss our upcoming episodes, and remember,
There's always time to explore the history and the heart of classical music.
Let's unpack that geography first. I feel like everyone has heard the terms troubadour and trouvère, but they often get used interchangeably. What's the actual difference?
It really comes down to a linguistic fault line running right through medieval France. You have the north and you have the south.
Okay, north versus south.
In the south, which also includes northern Spain, the language was Occitan, or the Languedoc.
Languedoc.
Ox simply meant yes. This was the home of the troubadour, and fascinatingly, the female troubourettes.
And the north.
In the north, they spoke the langue d'oil, where oil meant yes, which is, of course, the ancestor of the modern French oui. This was the territory of the trouvère.
So it's literally defined by how they said yes. That's brilliant. But where do these words troubadour, trouvère actually come from?
The etymology is where things get really interesting. The most accepted theory is that they come from the early French word trobar.
Trobar.
Yeah, which means to find or to invent. Essentially, these were finders of songs. They were inventors
But there's another theory, right? One that hints at a much more sort of exotic influence.
Yes, and this is a theory that really highlights the cross-cultural nature of the time. Some scholars suggest the root might actually be the Arabic word tarab,
Tarov.
which means a source of joy or even musical ecstasy.
And that connects directly to something I found pretty surprising in the research. We usually think of the Crusades as purely military conflicts, knights riding off to fight in the Holy Land. But they were listening too.
They were. The Crusades were a period of intense conflict, yes, but also profound cultural exchange. Crusaders in the Holy Land encountered highly developed vocal and instrumental styles. They heard things they had never, ever heard in Europe.
And we have a prime example of this with William the Ice, the Duke of Aquitaine.
The first known troubadour.
Right. He led what was called the Crusade of the Faint-Hearted in 1101. Not the best branding, I have to say.
Perhaps not, no, but his musical legacy is just undeniable. He wrote verses that were clearly influenced by Arabic forms, specifically the muwasha and zahal.
And those were what?
These were popular song forms in the Arab world, and William seems to have brought those structures back with him to the courts of France.
So you have these knights returning, maybe with PTSD, but also with these new, beautiful melodies and poetic structures. And this all feeds into the whole concept of fin amour, or courtly love.
Which is so central to this era. Fin amour was a code of etiquette. It mirrored the feudal relationship. Just as a vassal pledged fealty to a lord, a knight pledged fealty to an idealized lady.
So it's about service.
It was about service, waiting, and often suffering from afar.
Which brings us to the man of the hour, the protagonist of our deep dive today, Adam de la Halle.
A fascinating character. He really straddles the line between the old oral traditions and the new, more learned styles.
He was born in Aarhus around 1222,
Mm.
and his backstory is just classic. He was educated in theology at the Abbey of Vassels. His dad wanted him to be a priest.
But Adam had other ideas.
He chose music and a short-lived marriage over the priesthood. But because he had that education, he went on to study polyphony at the University of Paris.
And that is such a crucial detail. Polyphony music, with multiple interweaving parts, was the cutting edge of musical technology. By learning that, Adam could apply these complex academic techniques to popular folk genres. He was a bridge.
A bridge between the street and the university.
Exactly.
Eh.
And his masterpiece is Le Jeu de Robin et de Marion, the play of Robin and Marion.
Often cited as a landmark in music history.
Let's break it down. What actually happens in this play? What's the story?
It's a pastoral story. Very simple on the surface. You have a knight who is trying to woo a country maid named Marion, but Marion is faithful to her rustic lover, Robin.
So it's a love triangle.
A very simple one, yeah. The format is what makes it so special. It consists of monophonic songs, so single melodies, where Adam took popular folk tunes of the day and set his own lyrics to them.
People often call this the first comic opera. Is that accurate?
It's a bit of a stretch, probably. Modern audiences would maybe recognize it more as a pantomime. It was spoken drama interspersed with songs. But the label opera really speaks to its narrative cohesion.
But what I love about this is the context. This wasn't just performed in a vacuum. The details are incredible. It was performed in Naples at Christmas in 1284.
And the audience is key here. The audience consisted of French refugees.
Refugees from where?
From Sicily.
Yeah.
They had just fled the Sicilian Vespers, which was a bloody coup against Adam's patron, Charles of Anjou. So you have these traumatized nobles exiled in Naples watching this play.
That is wild. So amidst this grim political backdrop, a coup, exile, violence, Adam de la Halle puts on a comedy.
And a satire. He didn't just tell a sweet story. He poked fun at everyone. He mocked the church. He mocked corrupt clerics. He mocked the people of his hometown heiress. He even mocked himself and his own family.
That takes some nerve.
It does. It shows that the function of this music wasn't just entertainment. It was a social release. It was TANDARADEI, the song of the nightingale, persisting even when the world seemed to be falling apart.
Now, Adam was a big deal. He was in the service of a king. But not everyone was so lucky. This chapter outlines a very strict social hierarchy of musicians. It wasn't just one big happy family of singers.
Far from it. The spectrum was vast. At the very bottom, you had the joggler in the south, or the jumbler in the north.
The gig economy workers of the 13th century.
Exactly. These were low-born, itinerant entertainers, and they had to be multi-talented, acrobatic, storytelling, juggling, playing instruments, all of it.
And their social standing?
Non-existent. They were literally outside the protection of the law. If someone harmed a jongleur, there was often no legal recourse. They were outcasts who brought joy.
That is a harsh existence.
Yeah.
But they'd produced some incredible music.
That's
The
right.
chapter mentions the Cantiga de Amigo.
Yes, a beautiful genre. These were songs written from a woman's perspective. A famous example is by Martin Kodak's, a jongleur who wrote these songs about a woman waiting for her lover by the sea in Vigo, Spain. It just captures that longing perfectly.
So that's the bottom tier. Who is slightly above them?
Then you have the Goliards. These are your rebellious students.
I love the Tolliards.
They were unemployed or dropout clerics. They had the education, like Adam de la Halle initially did, but they didn't fit into the church structure. So where did they hang out? Taverns?
And I assume they weren't singing hymns.
Definitely not. They wrote bawdy, satirical songs in Latin, mocking the church, mocking society. Lots of drinking songs. The famous Carmina Burana manuscript, which many people know from Karl Orff's dramatic modern setting, is actually the main source of their work.
So Goliards in the taverns, jongleurs on the road. Then you have the minstrels.
The minstrel. The word literally means little minister or servant. This implied they had a specific patron, a court, or a city that offered them protection. They were higher status because they had a safety net.
And over time, that term just sort of evolved.
Eventually, minstrel just became the catch-all term for pretty much any urban musician.
And we can't forget the Germans.
The minnesinger. This is the German equivalent of the troubadour. They sang minnelieder, or love songs.
Yeah.
They were definitely influenced by the French, but had their own distinct identity. Walther von Vogelweid is the big name there. By 1200, they had established a very strong, distinct style.
So we have the geography, the people, the hierarchy.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the hardware. If we walked into a hall in 1284, what were they actually playing?
This brings us right back to that Eastern influence we touched on earlier. If you look at the instruments of medieval Europe, the DNA of the Middle East and North Africa is just everywhere.
These are some examples.
Okay, take the lute. That classic medieval instrument with the back shaped like a tortoise shell.
Right.
That comes from the Arab world. The rebec, a spoon-shaped bowed instrument. The sham, which is the loud, buzzing precursor to the oboe.
Even the percussion, right?
Yes. The tabor, a drum, is related to the Indian tabla. The nakers, which are small kettle drums, are related to the Asian naquara. Even the word fanfare likely comes from the Arabic anfar, meaning trumpets.
It really was a global soundscape. But there was one instrument that the poets preferred above all others, the vielle.
The vielle, yes. This is crucial for understanding the actual sound of the era. It was a bowed string instrument, usually resting on the collarbone. But the construction was different from a modern violin in one very specific, very important way.
The bridge.
Right. A modern violin has an arched bridge. This allows the player to bow one string at a time, creating a single, clean melody line. The vielle had a flat bridge.
So what does that do to the sound?
It means that when you draw the bow across, you're almost forced to hit multiple strings at once. So instead of just a melody, you get a melody plus a constant drone from the other strings.
Sounds more like a hurdy-gurdy or a bagpipe backing.
Exactly that. It creates this rich, harmonic wash of sound that supports the voice. It's a very groan-heavy aesthetic, which is quite different from the clean lines we emphasize in classical music today.
So when we put all this together, the flattened bridges, the Arabic-influenced lutes, the satirical lyrics, the refugees in the audience, it paints a very, very different picture of the Middle Ages.
It does. We tend to think of history in black and white or, well, in silence. But this era wasn't just about monks chanting in unison. It was a vibrant, messy, cross-cultural explosion of sound.
It feels incredibly modern in a way.
Mm.
You have the high art of the Finemmer in the courts, and then you have the Goliards singing drinking songs in the tavern down the street.
And often figures like Adam de la Halle moving between those worlds. And I think that's the main takeaway for you, the listener. This music was alive, it was functional, it was used to woo lovers, to complain about politics, to mourn the dead, and to make people laugh during dark times.
And for anyone listening who loves the singer-songwriter tradition today, Bob Dylan, Ed Sheeran, whoever, you are looking at the direct descendants of these itinerant performers.
Absolutely. The troubadours and jongleurs were the original singer-songwriters. They valued improvisation and personal expression over rigid notation. They were telling their stories.
I just keep thinking back to that title, TANDARADEI, the song of the nightingale.
It's a beautiful metaphor. Amidst the coups, the crusades, the religious wars, the nightingale still sang. People still gathered to watch plays like Robin and Marion. The human need for art and satire didn't just stop because the times were hard.
If anything, it became more necessary.
Exactly.
Well, that is where we are going to leave our medieval soundscape for today. It's been a fascinating journey from the Arabic roots of the lute to the comedy of Adam de la Halle.
a pleasure to explore it.
We want to thank you for listening to this deep dive. If this piqued your interest, keep your ears open. There's so much more music history to uncover, and we'll be back with more deep dives into the hidden corners of the classical world.
Stay curious.
See you next time.
Thank you for joining us, and we hope this summary and analysis have been of great help to you. Please remember that this is only a summary and can never replace the book itself. Therefore, we invite you to truly immerse yourself in the work by reading the original text. If this content was useful to you, please consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the notification bell. Remember, you can share this video with your friends to help our community continue to grow. Warmest regards, and remember, there is always time to learn and explore the world of classical music. A Viola Studio production.